Lord of the Rings: The Third Age is a Western JRPG created by EA Redwood Shores in 2004 for the Xbox, GameCube, and the PS2. The game is a retelling of sorts of the classic Peter Jackson trilogy, The Lord of the Rings. I say a retelling of sorts because the game follows new characters moviegoers have never seen before on an adventure around Middle-earth during the iconic Third Age of Tolkien's extensive universe. If that last sentence sounds like gibberish to you, don't worry, I won't dive too deeply into the lore, but if you are interested in becoming a massive Tolkien nerd, like myself, I recommend you check out In Deep Geek and Nerd of the Rings. They do amazing stuff. Okay, I'll keep the story bits light, but you play as Barethor, and before you start, yes, I will be mispronouncing any and all names, so no need to come for my Tolkien nerd cred in the comments section. I have no such cred. Barethor is following Boromir, who famously got lost on his way to the Council of Elrond and Rivendell. Oh shit, I'm doing it again. Look, this game assumes you have basic knowledge of Peter Jackson's films, so watch about 10 hours of cinema and then get back to me. Okay, you done with that? Great. Carrying on. You parallel the film trilogy by assembling an alternate fellowship complete with a Gondorian knight, a ranger, a dwarf, an elf, and it closely resembles the original story. So much so that you almost have to ask why they bothered to make up new ones, like this new Barethor character. I think the answer is that they probably couldn't get the original voice cast back, and they wanted to strike similar story beats without being confined by the events of the film. This way you can fight the Balrog and Moria without having Tolkien geeks, like myself again, whine about how this or that didn't happen in the actual canonical timeline. Basically, they want to have their cake and eat it too. My god, that looks appetizing. There are three main forms of gameplay: exploration in the world map, an RPG menu system, and combat. In the world map, there are two objects to interact with: chests and save pillars. That's it. There are no shops to visit and no money to buy anything with anyway. There are virtually no towns or NPCs to talk to, although you do get to tour Helm's Deep and actually interact with soldiers and villagers, but this is an exception to the rule. For instance, your party visits Lothlorien, just like the Fellowship did, but since there's nothing to fight there, you just skip right to the next stop in the journey. The environments vacillate between being recognizable movie locations like the Mines of Moria or that village in Rohan that got attacked, to generic fantasy forest settings. The locations are limited given the linear nature of the gameplay. The entire game boils down to a series of interconnected sort of dungeon runs where random or planned enemy encounters occur. The menus are where you spend basic ability points like strength, becoming more accurate, and so on and so forth. The abilities are all plainly explained, and it doesn't even matter that much how you spend the ability points, since much of the auto leveling spends the points for you anyway. So there's no way to make a speedy dwarf or a tanky elf. Speedy dwarf. My god, the jokes just write themselves, don't they? My goodness, look at that little guy go. Let's talk combat. And even though there's not a lot to talk about, this is how you'll be spending most of your time in-game. You can attack, skip, access items, or spend ability points on magic or special physical attacks. One interesting quirk is how you must use your abilities in order to advance the skill tree. Basically, your abilities have their own EXP points. It's actually a fantastic system that encourages you to use your abilities and not rely on just attacking and healing, which is a viable strategy for basic encounters, especially on lower difficulties. A quick aside on difficulties, it does get much tougher at the halfway point, and I had to toggle it down to medium the rest of the way. Okay, you can also swap out any of your characters at any time. And you want to do this since the best way to make sure your EXP is distributed evenly across your party is if everyone gets a turn. The only times you cannot swap out characters is when you're surrounded by 6 or more enemies, which is an interesting mechanic until you realize you can just rotate your party endlessly, making such encounters feel routine and a bit pointless. After about an hour, you will have seen the gameplay loop. You'll have it down. Move forward on the map while keeping an eye out for treasure chests, find enemies, watch some movie clips, see some in-game cutscenes, then move to a new area and repeat. Let's go to the negatives. The negatives are simply that, well, that's the whole game. It's as straightforward as RPGs get. Hate it or love it. Even leveling up and equipping new gear are all streamlined. For instance, when you get a new piece of gear, you just have to click on equipment and click new. The new gear you get will automatically be at the top of the queue, and you could simply compare it based on simple stats as to which one you want. Do you like complexity or deep role-playing experiences? If so, this one's just not for you. But, on the other hand, the game's weaknesses can be its strengths. Want to keep it simple? Want to play 30 minutes of an RPG without giving yourself a headache? Are you into Lord of the Rings? If you answered yes to those questions, then this game may be right up your alley. I came to this title after slogging through another RPG, and the pace at which you move here is refreshing. Yes, you do level up frequently, and that means you do spend a good chunk of time assigning skills and equipping armor. But everything is so streamlined and linear, it almost feels like an arcadey RPG, right down to the ability to select the hardest difficulty from the start and to play as the dark forces in like an evil mode. If this is the only RPG you've ever played, it's true, you're not getting the full experience. However, if you're up for a more laid-back RPG experience, or if you're new to the genre, this may be just what the doctor ordered. In reviewing this game, I'm reminded of a different one. Guardians Crusade was a kid-friendly JRPG that came out during the heyday of the genre on consoles. This is before the genre was revitalized by the mobile market. That game was a jumping-on point, an intro of sorts, to JRPGs. A side note, but comment below if you want me to review that one too. Similar to Guardians Crusade, the Third Age is accessible to JRPG newcomers, while still offering a considerable challenge. The story, however, gets caught between trying to tell a whole new tale with new characters, while also recapping the original movie trilogy. Obviously, neither effort goes too well. It is, however, nice to know how you are progressing through the game based on which part of the story you are playing through. Is it Helm's Deep? Well, you know you're at about the midway point, for instance. Even though this is sort of accomplished by some truly jarring leaps between major story events. For instance, Osgiliath will fall, and 30 seconds later, the orcs are storming into Minas Tirith. In that way, the game is sort of a cross between a JRPG and those mid-2000s console licensed games. But, do you want to see what it's like to go on an epic quest to destroy the One Ring? Well, tough shit. Suikoden, this is not. But, have you ever wanted to experience an all-new story in Tolkien's universe with an alternate fellowship while engaging in tons of JRPG combat? Well, jackpot, because that's basically what this game is. Does that appeal to you? If the answer is yes, then this game is worth trying. If not, you probably want to avoid this game. It's really that simple. Now, my dear Tolkien nuts, since let's be honest, everyone who is not a Tolkien nut has totally clicked off of this video by now, I need you to rate and comment on this vid because
even the smallest person can change the course of the future.
Well, you heard the lady. Now, do as John Rhys Davies did and go enjoy Middle-earth.
What's happening out there?
Shall I describe it to you? Or would you like me to find you a box?